Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so can you see my screens? Can you see the steps here?
Yes.
Okay, super. So before we go over those steps, I'm going to show you the documentation we have. So here, basically, we have a year-end closing for SAP Business One documentation. It comes from SAP, and even though it says 9.1, it's still very accurate as of 9.3 or even 10.0. And it is a very complete document. It has so many explanations. It has a lot of details, and most of it is very, how can I say, it is not limited to SAP, but it's really how to perform a year-end closing for any accountant. So I won't go over each of those steps. You probably already know all of them, but just so you to know, if you need, you probably know that you have to do them, but how to get to that menu SAP, so you can rely on this on this document to know where to get it in SAP. So you have information about reconciliation for bank account or for GL account. You have journal entries. You have inventory here, inventory count, which is very interesting. It gives you information on checking the completeness of documents. Let's say, do you have any draft open in the system that you should be creating? Or do you have any open items, open documents like deliveries that you should invoice, for instance? It gives you a lot of information about VAT reporting, profit and loss trial, and so on.
And by the way, guys, just 1 second, I have a copy of this. So if anybody wants a copy, just send me an email and I'll share it with you. And just one point, Christophe, if you can just go up a tick.
Yeah, sure.
You were on inventory counting there. I just want to let you guys all know that on December 11th, we have a complete session with Yannick that's going to be covering a half hour just on inventory audits for SAP. So just wanted to say that, Christophe. Keep going. Sorry about it.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks. No worries. So, okay, and for each of those topics, you have the path here. And also at the very end, you have a checklist, which is here. So it's a nice reminder. It's worth looking at it. But for now, for today, we will follow this slide here. Okay, so it's 6 easy steps. The first one is basically the whole SAP documentation here. And I'd just like to show you something about journal entries. In SAP, when you create a journal entry, you can use this adjustment transaction period 13 checkbox here. So let's say here it's a very old database. I've basically never created any year-end closing except this morning for the French webinar. So I'm kind of, today we're going to be closing year 2011. So let's say my year 2011 is ending on December 31st. If I need to create a journal entry for this, I can check here adjustment transaction. What it will do is, in reality, it's going to be done in period 12, not 13, but it will allow me to have an extra filter here when I run a balance or a trial or profit and loss. I will be able to check or not this ignore adjustment. So it makes it very easy to do comparison before and after the adjustment. Okay, let's continue. Next step is to back up the database. It is an optional step. Just in case something wrong happens, we can always revert back. Of course, if no one was working in the system during that time. But don't hesitate. If you need help for this, you can send us an email and we'll be happy to do the backup for you. Next step is change the status of the posting periods. Let's see what we have. Okay, so you guys know that we have 4 period status. Okay, unlock is anyone that has access to the system can post a transaction. Could be a delivery, an inventory transaction, an invoice. Locked is no one can proceed to a transaction in SAP. Even if you are the super user, you are not allowed to create anything that has a journal entry. And in between, you have those two steps: unlocked, accept sales, and closing period. So those are related to authorization in the system. Let's take Alex in the general. Okay, let's make it a bit bigger. You have the period status, unlock, accept sales, where you can grant or not authorization. So what you could do is your regular users could have no authorization on those two, unlock, accept sales, and closing periods. And so you would be the only one to have access to the closing period. So during that time, you can be sure that no one will create any transaction for the year that you're closing. It's an extra safety. So now we need to make sure that for ourselves, we have the correct status to be able to close that year, 2011. So what are the steps? What are the status that we can have is those 3 here: unlock, accept sales, and closing. I would go with the closing because then it means that only the super user has access to that. So we will be opening, well, currently they are already all in closing periods, but if they were not, we would change them. And just a quick tip here, sometimes it can be time consuming to do a drill down on each of them, change the status here, do update, okay, go back to the next one, do another drill down, and so on. So what you can do, you can simply click on the first one, you change it to closing period, let's say, and now you just use these arrows here to change it, and you go to the next one. Makes it very easy to change 12 posting periods.
It's quicker.
Exactly. So make sure that 2011 is open, and we want to make sure also that January 2012 is open. When I mean open, sorry, I mean in closing period, not locked. So why? It's because SAP will clear those expense and revenue accounts for the last year, for the last day of the year. It will clear the amount that we have in the general ledger. It will put it in a temporary account on the last day of the year, and on the first day of the following year, so in January 2012, it will report those amounts into the retained earnings. So that will be step 4 and 5. So now what we need to have is, for that step, we need to have closing periods. There we are, closing periods. Now we can do a quick verification about the balance. We want to make sure that we don't have any opening balance for those revenue and expense account. So if we did have an opening balance, it would mean that maybe we have some transaction from the previous periods that were not closed. So let's see here. No cost accounting, financial report, financial. Let's run a trial. Here, we want to make sure it is very important to select the opening balance for period from the start of company, and also the add closing balance of live to date. And here we have the option to ignore or not the adjustment. Okay, good. I'm going to click on OK. And I don't have any opening balance here. So it means that it's all good. And just by curiosity, I will run a P&L. Actually, I'm not sure that I entered the right information. Did I? Oh, it was already there for 2011. Okay, good. Now let's run a profit and loss. Good. Okay. So we have revenues, cost of goods sold, and some expense here. And this is the profit that we're expecting for the period, 17,000. Okay, good. Now let's jump to the next step, which is period end closing. In administration, utilities, period end closing. Okay, I'm going to go from here. Administration, utilities, period end closing. Okay, so here I have access only to the years that are not closed, and I will select from January to December here. The retained earning accounts is there automatically, but we have to be careful here. I don't have the right period end closing account, so I'm gonna change it for the period end closing account. So this is my temporary account. Okay, I'm gonna hit execute. So here I will have one line, one row per revenue and cost of goods sold. Is the balance here. And I have here the amount of the profit or the loss, which is same as this one. So it's a good sign. Just gonna cancel this and this. So now what I'm gonna do is I could put a ref 1, ref 2, and I need to have a due date. So the due date will be the last day of the year 2011. Do we have a question? Okay. So ref 1, ref 2 is not mandatory. Remark, we could change it, or we could just leave it like this. Now it's easy here because I have only 3 lines, but even if I had 50 lines, I could just click on the approve and they will all be checked at once. It's possible to do an export effect in Excel if you need to, and basically we're set. So from here, once that we are sure that it makes sense, we simply click on execute, and that's it. So what SAP did is financial journal entry. For each of the revenue and expense account, SAP created 2 journal entries, one for December 31st to clear the amount into the period end closing here, and another one on January 1st of the following year to clear the period end closing and put it in the retained earnings. So it's that simple. And the last step would be to lock the period. So it is important, even if many people do not have access to those closing periods, it will be important to change the status to locked, so that even ourselves, even as a super user, we won't do any any modification. Do you have any question?
I don't have any questions in the chat box, but I just want you guys to know, I know I've got some people here that are from the US, some are out west, but we have an internal document at Forgestic, which is in French. So this is the English session. We don't have it in English, but I don't know if you can show it, Christophe. Just if
Sure.
anybody wanted a copy of this, if somebody does have someone in your office that speaks French, it's an internal document that really gives all the steps, and it's quite interesting. This is our ex-director of services that had created this. It's an internal document, but if somebody wants this, I could share it as well. Okay, so just wanted you to know that.
Yeah, it's a five pages. It's very clear. It goes straight to the point.
Yeah.
So it can be just a reminder. Like this one is very complete. It's very interesting, but sometimes you just need a quick reminder. This one can be interesting too.
But the other one has the checklist and everything. But I just wanted to mention it because some people who were here this morning, this afternoon, do speak French. So if anybody wanted this copy or just the other one, just send me an email, tracy@forgestic.com, and I'll send it out to you. So are there any questions? Oh, just a second here. Please send me the year-end document. Okay, great, Nick. I will send it to you. No problem. So anybody else who wants it, just send me an email. And so that wraps it up for today. So thanks, everybody. Have a nice weekend. And talk to you soon. Thanks, Christophe.
Thank you. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.